Alrighty again, so hello everyone. Thank you again for joining us for today's fleet webinar, the top 3 incentive programs for your electric fleet, hosted by the Clean Vehicle Rebate Project here at the Center for Sustainable Energy. Before we get started, I wanted to start off by saying thank you to all the attendees and all the presenters. We wish you nothing but the best health and safety for everyone during these unprecedented times. And on a more positive note, I'd like to highlight how awesome it is that we can utilize things like video conferencing to connect with colleagues throughout the state and nation and help continue our transition to clean transportation. In today's webinar, we will be covering the 3 main fleet incentive programs here in California, all designed to help you transition your fleet to electric vehicles. These 3 California-based incentive programs include the Clean Vehicle Rebate Project, or CVRP for light-duty vehicles, the California Hybrid and Zero Emission Truck and Bus Voucher Incentive Project, or HVIP, for zero emission trucks and buses, and last but not least, the brand new Commercial Off-Road Equipment Voucher Program, or CORE, which is for commercialized off-road vehicles. My name is Tim Insalvis. I work here at the Center for Sustainable Energy as the project coordinator for our CVRP dealership and fleet programs. Also with me today is Matthew Henderson, Senior Outreach Coordinator for CVRP, and Bing Ling, Rebate Processing Specialist for CVRP, to help answer any application and processing questions. After covering CVRP, we'll have Nikki Oku, Project Manager from CalStart, covering CORE and HVIP. A big thank you to Nikki and her team for contributing to our webinar today. On the next slide, I will hand it off to my colleague, Matthew Henderson, to cover CVRP and our CVRP standard rebate offering.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. The Clean Vehicle Rebate Project is administered by the Center for Sustainable Energy for the California Air Resources Board. CARB has ambitious goals for emission reduction that includes adding 5 million light-duty clean vehicles on the road by 2023. The Clean Vehicle Rebate Project, CVRP, is a program that promotes clean vehicle adoption in California by offering California residents rebates of up to $7,000 for the purchase or lease of new light-duty zero-emission vehicles. The standard rebate amounts vary depending on vehicle type. For fuel cell electric, the standard rebate is $4,500. For battery electric, $2,000. And for plug-in hybrid electric, $1,000. Once the EV customer completes the purchase or lease of their new vehicles, they will submit their application, and within 90 days will receive a rebate check in the mail, depending on vehicle type. In addition to the standard rebate described previously, applicants with low to moderate income are eligible for an increased rebate of $2,500 with eligibility depending on the income threshold calculator. Some fleets may qualify for additional $2,500 as well if the location of the facility is within California Disadvantaged Community Census Tract. A great tool to use to check eligibility is the Cal Enviro screen, accessible from the link below. And now Tim Insalvis will explain CVRP's fleet rebate qualifications. Thank you.
Thanks, Mateo. I'd also like to reiterate that the standard rebate amounts you covered are the exact same amount for fleets. And for public fleets interested in the increased rebate, like you said, we use the Cal Enviro Screen 3.0 tool, which is provided by the Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment on behalf of the California Environmental Protection Agency. It helps identify California communities by census tract that are disproportionately burdened by and vulnerable to multiple sources of pollution. In the following slides, I will cover which fleets qualify for how many rebates, the requirements, reserving funds, and the application process. So within the CVRP program, there are 3 different fleet rebate programs. First, for public agencies, such as local government or state entities, they are eligible for up to 30 rebates annually. For car sharing and rental fleets, such as Blue LA or Enterprise, they are eligible for up to 20 rebates annually. Lastly, businesses, nonprofits, federal entities, and tribal communities are eligible for only 1 rebate per lifetime. Next slide, please. So what are some of the requirements of this program? Similar to the standard rebate, the car must be new and on the CVRP list of eligible vehicles. You must also retain ownership in California for a minimum of 30 consecutive months. There is, however, an exception for car sharing and rental fleet programs, as they are eligible for a reduced ownership provision. If the car is owned and operated for more than a year, but less than the 30 months required, they are eligible for up to $1,800 depending on the car type. For public fleets, there is an additional requirement to submit annual vehicle usage reports at 12, 24, and 30 months after the purchase of the vehicles. We will provide the Excel template, and you will be required to provide data such as mileage, annual fuel use, and the percentage of operation with DACs. I'd like to note that this is a very simple Excel template. Anyone can approach this, so it isn't anything too hefty or too much of a heavy lift for you guys there. Another major perk for public fleets is that they can reserve their rebates up to 18 months in advance, which can be very helpful when budgeting and planning your procurement. All other fleet applicants can only apply for the rebate after the purchase, and it must be done within 3 months. The application process is pretty simple and straightforward and is done through our website, cleanvehiclerebate.org. Simply, applicants will check their eligibility online, fill out the application, and submit the supporting documents. We will review and process the application and documents internally, and then you will receive the CVRP rebate check in the mail with wait times ranging anywhere from 3 to 5 months, depending on the queue. For public fleets who are trying to reserve ahead of time, they must certify their intent to acquire an eligible vehicle by providing supporting documentation, such as a letter of intent, and emailing it directly to our team at publicfleets@energycenter.org. Last but not least, I wanted to quickly share all of your regional representatives for the CVRP dealership and fleet programs. Again, my name's Tim. I currently cover San Diego, Orange County, and the Bay Area. Matthew Henderson currently covers LA and the Inland Empire. Coley Garcia currently covers Sacramento and Central Valley. And we also have a general fleet email below, publicfleets@energycenter.org. This contact information will also be available at the end of the webinar, so if you can't write it down in time, no worries. Now that we've covered our light duty incentive, I'd like to introduce Nikki Okug to cover HVIP and the new core program.
Thank you so much, Tim. So what I'm going to be covering today are the California HVIP and California Core programs. And as Tim mentioned, these are for heavy duty equipment. There are other funding models out there that are typically grant-based or maybe intended for demos or pilots and demonstrations. The reason these two programs are being presented together is they're very similar to each other because they're both voucher incentive programs and they're both designed for equipment that is commercially available so you can buy it direct from a dealer today. Here's a little background about myself. So I actually owned and operated a trucking company down in the Port of Long Beach for many years before I came to CalSTART. And the reason we included this is because I hope that it means that I can sort of understand some of the challenges that fleet managers face and hopefully help you navigate these systems and assist you in turning over your fleet to clean and new alternative fuel vehicles. So the way these voucher incentive programs work is they're really intended to help early technologies enter the market when we know that they are going to be quite significantly more expensive than their traditional combustion engine counterparts. So early on, when these technologies are much more expensive, voucher incentive programs were designed to really take the incremental cost right off the top of the sticker price. And in doing this, we bring these pieces of equipment back down to their standard cost. And we do this by using dealers. So we train dealers to do the application process and hopefully enable fleets to start experiencing this new technology. And one of the main benefits here is we don't require fleets to retire old equipment. So many other grant incentive programs that are designed to later turn over your fleets en masse are slightly different and will require that you retire or destroy a piece of equipment in exchange for this new one. Neither one of these programs require that. So as I mentioned, the way these voucher incentives programs sort of fit into the overall structure of incentives in California is they come after the pilots and demonstration funding. So those are intended to get early model prototypes out there and into use in a sort of variety of vocations and duty cycles. And once the technology has proven itself to be commercially viable, then it can be included in HVIP and core. So to demonstrate that, each manufacturer of these pieces of equipment need to submit an application to us early on in order to be included in our catalogs. So both on the californiacore.org website and the californiahvip.org website, you will find approved equipment catalogs. And that's where you can find out which manufacturers have created the type of equipment that you're looking for. So if you're looking for on-road equipment, you're going to go to californiahvip.org, where you can see a variety of buses, shuttles, trucks, utility vehicles. Those are all available there. If you're looking for off-road equipment, you can go to californiacore.org and you'll find an equipment catalog there that will include things like forklifts, heavy-duty container handling equipment, rail car movers, and a variety of other freight-related equipment. Now, as I mentioned, at this stage in the process, no fleet would be required to retire or to scrap any equipment in order to receive a voucher. Some of the other funding models later on, including VW Mitigation Trust or AB 617 or Carl Moyer funding, might mandate that you retire or scrap some other vehicle. Okay, so as I mentioned, the California HVIP program is for medium and heavy duty trucks and buses. It supports a variety of technology types, including electric, fuel cell, EPTO, and low NOx natural gas. In the past, it has also funded things like hybrid and smaller models of the natural gas engine. However, those are sort of graduated out of the HVIP program and are no longer included. It's important to note that HVIP has been around for 10 years, and this year is extremely oversubscribed. So there was, they expended all of the funds last year, and there was quite a bit of a wait list coming into this year, and it should be refunded again in November of this year. But I'm glad that you're on this webinar, because that means that you're thinking about the future of your fleet. And sometimes these purchase decisions take quite a while, especially when you have to take into consideration installing charging infrastructure and thinking about how these are going to fit into your duty cycle. So it's good to be thinking early and often and communicating with your local utility early and often when you're thinking about deploying some heavy duty electric equipment. So even though the funds aren't available now, it's good to learn about the program and visit the website and take a look at what's available. So the Clean Off-Road Voucher Incentive Program includes a variety of freight handling equipment. So the on and off-road terminal tractors that used to be in HVIP have moved over to this program. We also include refrigerated trailers, heavy-duty forklifts, gantry cranes, and container handling equipment, including reach stackers, side picks, top picks. There's a variety of GSE and airport equipment, including cargo loaders, aircraft tugs, ground power units. We also include mobile power units, rail car movers, and cable management systems for cargo ships at berth. So here's just an example of some of the voucher amounts that are available through California HVIP. As I mentioned, you should go to the website to find exactly what you're looking for and see what voucher is offered for that, and it changes occasionally. If you were looking at a truck, say a delivery truck, maybe a larger delivery truck in the 26-foot box truck, that would be on the higher end here, 26,000 pounds, it would be a $95,000 voucher outside of a DAC, and inside of a DAC, disadvantaged community, as defined earlier by CVRP, it would be an increased voucher amount of $110,000. Here's an example of some of the bus options available. So for a smaller sort of shuttle bus option, you might find an $80,000 to $90,000 voucher. On the higher end, for a full-sized fuel cell hydrogen bus, the incentive amount is $315,000. Again, here is an example of some of the voucher amounts that are available. However, you always want to go to the website, again, californiacore.org. I'm going to sound like a broken record here pretty soon, where you can find the equipment catalog, which lists next to each piece of equipment the voucher that has been approved for that particular piece of equipment. But the vouchers range from as low as $20,000 or $30,000 for medium-sized forklifts, all the way up to $500,000 for the large cable management systems. So as I mentioned, both of the programs have enhancements when the equipment is based in what we define as pollution overburdened communities. They're defined slightly differently for each program, and you can find links to the mapping systems on the CARB website from each of their respective websites, and they will sort of show you how an HVIP is defined by what's called AB 535, which are disadvantaged communities, whereas in CORE we include those DACs as well as AB 1550 low income communities. So it would include both the red area and the blue area marked on the state map here. Infrastructure funding. So as I mentioned, when you're planning for this sort of thing, you want to be communicating early and often with your local utility, primarily because they're going to have some of the support that you need in order to do the up to the stub out installation of power, and they're going to help you define whether or not you're going to need to bring more power into your facility to support this deployment. But HVIP in the past has also incentivized and paid for charger installation after that stub out in the past. However, because it's so oversubscribed, they're no longer offering that service. I will remind you though, however, that your local utility may have incentives to help you pay for that charger. CORE, on the other hand, still offers a voucher incentive for charging, and it ranges from $3,000 to $30,000, depending on whether or not you're going with one basic charger or perhaps a high-speed charger for multiple vehicles. But again, this usually pays for everything after stub out. It doesn't include things like utility upgrades or trenching. Those are things that you're going to need to discuss with your local utility. So we conduct outreach for both programs all over the state. HVIP, however, has been around for 10 years. We've deployed more than 7,000 vouchers to thousands of fleets across the state. And we're looking to do some continued collaboration, even in this time when the program is oversubscribed, because there are also a variety of other funding options available out there. And we want to make sure to keep the momentum going, especially by sort of enhancing our outreach and education to the smaller fleets and small businesses out there that maybe have not had the opportunity to access this funding as of yet. CORE, on the other hand, is very new. We only launched about a month ago. We spent a few months doing a lot of feedback with our stakeholders, and if you'd like to participate in those work group meetings, they're held quarterly. If you're interested in engaging and giving feedback on the program and how we can improve it and make it more accessible to you and more useful for your fleets, we'd love to hear from you. We launched, let's see, at the end of February, and we've expended about half of the funding this far. We hope to, of course, have used it within the year timeline that we have. And we're not clear yet whether or not it'll be refunded again in next year's budget. So the voucher incentive process is slightly different than the CVRP process. As I mentioned, the intention is to really take the sticker price down. So we ask that OEMs, manufacturers, submit their equipment for approval, become part of our online catalog, and that their dealers enroll and that their dealers learn the process of how to request these vouchers. That way, the dealer can initiate a voucher request on behalf of any customer who's interested in those products. Now, if you are a fleet who has a relationship with a particular dealer and a particular OEM that you like to use, then I strongly recommend that you send this PowerPoint or others or the website onto them, and they can reach out to us and we can help them through the application process and help them in the dealer enrollment process so that they can be prepared to assist you with your purchases. And this is a little bit about how the voucher process works. So once your dealer and your equipment are eligible and enrolled in the program, you would contact your dealer in order to initiate the purchase. The dealer then is the one that requests the voucher from us, and then they order the equipment for you. Now there's usually, it only takes a few days for those first few steps, right? Where you say that you want this particular type of equipment, the dealer sends in the request for that equipment, and then we usually ask for some sort of purchase order as documentation. In the case of public fleets, though, I will make a note that we understand sometimes it's difficult to get purchase orders per se, so usually there's some other type of documentation that sort of describes the intention to purchase. So once all that's been submitted, your voucher funding is set aside and you're no longer at risk of losing that funding, even though we realize sometimes it may be a bit of a lag when a lot of this equipment is built custom order and can take anywhere from 3 to 6 to 12 months build time. So there may be then a gap. And as long as you're checking in with us and letting us know that this order has not been canceled, we won't cancel your voucher. Now, once the equipment is delivered, we just ask for some follow-up documentation. This would include some pictures of the equipment. In the case of on-road equipment, we look to see, proof of registration. In the case of off-road equipment, we might want a picture of the hour meter on the equipment, things like that. But your dealer would be in charge of collecting all that data and submitting it to us. Now, they will have collected payment from you for the portion of the price that you are responsible for, and that's it. Then they'll come back to us and demonstrate to us that the equipment has been delivered and paid for by you, in which case then we will pay the difference directly to the dealer. So you don't have to worry about paying upfront and then getting reimbursed later. It's all done through the dealer. Now, there are some responsibilities, though, that a purchaser would have to follow on. Just like CVRP, we ask for annual user reports. We want to know that the equipment is being used, how it's being used, and where it's being used. We do ask that the equipment remain in California for 3 years. However, if it's getting sold out of state, you can usually apply for an exemption with an explanation. We ask that the purchasers submit, I think it's different for both programs, so I didn't enumerate it here, but you can learn more on both websites. But we ask them to put in quarterly or annual reports that have some information. And as you mentioned, it would be on a very simple Excel spreadsheet, sort of describing the charging habits of the equipment and things like that. So we have some details about the telematics and reporting requirements for purchasers, but again, very simple, and we'll guide you through all of that. So, okay. So that's the end of my presentation, and I really look forward to hearing from all of you with all of your questions. I'm very excited that all of you are still thinking about making this transition with your fleets, even in these very challenging times. And as I mentioned, it's great to be thinking ahead because these purchases sometimes take quite a while and require quite a bit of planning. So thank you again, and I look forward to your questions.
Right on. Thanks, Nikki, for a great overview of both HVIP and CORE. As you can see, it's a very exciting time for fleet managers as there are plenty of incentives available to help electrify and update your fleet. And just to echo what Nikki said, planning ahead is very crucial to doing this efficiently. So we're glad that you're taking those steps. So a couple of announcements we'd like to make before we touch on your questions. We have an upcoming fleet electrification guide that our team is very excited about releasing in the next couple months. We're creating a 6 to 10 page holistic guide to electrifying your fleet, which will cover a wide array of topics to consider when electrifying, such as the benefits of EVs, vehicle assessment and replacement, infrastructure planning and sizing, DER, telematics and data reporting, staff training and best practices, and current incentives and additional resources available. So keep an eye out for that. Lastly, I'd like to mention the upcoming webinars we have for the remainder of the year. We'll be covering topics such as infrastructure incentives and best practices, fleet management best practices, and other clean energy options and resources. Before we move on to questions, I'd also like to ask our attendees, if there's a specific topic you're interested in us covering during our fleet webinar series, please let us know in the chat box. We have all of our contact info here. Please don't hesitate to reach out with any of your questions. We are here to help. And thanks again to all of our attendees and presenters today. So we'll open it up to questions. All right, looks like we got a couple here. Here's a general question. Can fleets apply for all 3 incentive programs? Yes, that is correct. People and fleet managers can apply for all 3 different programs as long as they're choosing vehicles that are eligible and they are eligible themselves. Nikki, is there anything you wanted to add on to that?
Oh, I'll only add on that I think that your program had some limit on the number of rebates they could request. However, at this time, HVIP and CORE do not have any limit on the number of vouchers that can be requested by a fleet. I think that the state may be considering in the future some limit around 100 or 200, but as of this moment, a fleet can request as many vouchers as they can use.
That's good to know. So just to clarify on that, for HVIP and CORE, there is no restriction. For CVRP, there is an annual restriction of 30 for public fleets. So you can apply for 30 different rebates each year. For car sharing and rental programs, that's 20, and for businesses, nonprofits, federal entities, and tribal communities, that's only 1 per lifetime. All right. Question for HVIP. What are the restrictions for the purchase of electric vehicle supply equipment through HVIP? Do they have to be used for a heavy duty vehicle, or can it be used for a light and medium duty vehicle as well?
Yes, so in the past, you are correct, HVIP had funded EVSE, but they have discontinued issuing vouchers for charging equipment. Only the core program now funds those. However, I would strongly recommend looking into your local utility. They should have SB 350 funding to help you pay for a variety of charging and installation work.
Perfect. Thanks for clarifying that, Nikki. It looks like we have 2 more. Nikki, are there incentive programs for excavators?
So the core program was designed to be very freight focused. However, in our GPU, MPU category, if you go on the website, there is something called a DANNAR, DANNAR, which is a piece of equipment to which you can attach a variety of attachments, anything from lifts, including skid loaders and other types of attachments. Now, it's on the smaller end of an excavator for sure, so I'm not sure what you're looking at now. However, we think that there will be potential funding for more off-road construction equipment in the future.
Cool, that's exciting. And it looks like we have 1 more general question. Will this webinar presentation be available for archives? The answer is yes. We are recording this webinar and we'll be emailing it out in 1 to 2 weeks after today. So I'll open it up for any more questions before we wrap up here. All right. It looks like we are all finished for the day with no more questions. There's 20 minutes back on your schedule for today. Again, we'd like to thank everybody for joining. Thank you again to Nikki and the CalSTART team. And thank you to the rest of the CVRP team for being here. We hope you guys have a safe and healthy week, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the week. Thanks.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you for having us.
Thanks, Nikki.